I'm testing the tech for the first time in a long time. So if I disappear, you know what's happened. I'm just curious to know, how long is it between me pressing start on the live record to when viewers receive a notification on the platforms? YouTube, Facebook, Twitch. Okay, I heard something. Okay. Facebook is the first. I think there's a several second time delay, which is fun. This is like time traveling. Okay, so for sure, Facebook is number one. I wonder if that's because of the YouTube notification settings. Maybe I'll do a quick test right now. YouTube's taking a while. Yeah, there we go. What am I gonna do now? Okay, I can shut down my platforms. Okay. So, the tech's working. Yay, technocrats. So, in my title, I mention ex-soldier David Goggins. He's one of my harem of ex-soldiers that I follow. Who's part of the harem? David Goggins, Jocko Willink, Andy Stumpf, Trevor Thompson. I have an open invitation for any ex-soldier out there. I'd even classify them as part of the IDW, Intellectual Dark Web. The IDW is a motley collection of what I'd consider experts and specialists. Some of them are academics, as in they have PhDs in a number of different niche subspecialties. Some of them have skills and experience in other realms of life, like those ex-soldiers. Johnny Kim's the fifth. Johnny Kim's actually the most accomplished of the ex-soldiers because he is Navy SEAL, medical doctor, and NASA astronaut. Did I tag him with the X title? I think he might even be still active duty. That fucked up, man. How can he do so much? Any one of those careers that I just mentioned would have been a distinguished career in its own right. But he's gone on and done 3 of them while being younger than me. Fuck him. He's that special Asian that all other Asian parents want you to be. But of all of them, I think, while they encourage and inspire people, David Goggins is probably the more forward-facing in the public. Maybe it's somewhat a 3-way race between him, Jocko Willink, and Andy Stumpf. The other 2 have podcasts that I listen to every so often. David is less in the public eye in terms of having his own podcast, but he just does a lot of cool ass shit that he invites the public to join him on. One such challenge that David Goggins started in 2020 was the 4x4x48 challenge. If I'm to understand, it is that every 4 hours you run 4 miles over a total period of 48 hours. This year in 2021, that 48-hour period occurs between March 5th to March 7th. Here's the thing. I used to run in high school. I ran mid-distance, 400 meters, and I was good enough at it. I finished in what place? I'll have to check. I have some ribbons somewhere. What place? Okay. In any case, as much as I think that running is worthwhile, and I've revisited it in the last couple years, that type of cardio is less my jam. My jam is actually dancing. So, in order to participate in David's challenge 4x4x48, I'm going to modify it to dance instead of run. I'm still thinking of how exactly I'm going to transform this, running into dancing. In my brief math, I think that the average person runs a 4 mile in 30 minutes and 10,000 steps. The problem is that my step counter might be lower than average. As someone who's done both run and dance at what you would call at least better than couch potato level, I think that dancing is actually more cardio intensive, but the steps are hard to translate. I think it's because you're doing a lot of different types of movements compared to strict running. Running with the energy input, you probably cover more of a distance. Dancing, you're still limited. So in experimenting with this step counter, I know what kinds of dance steps rack up the most steps on a step counter. The last couple of days I've been experimenting with crip dancing. Crip dancing is a lot of fun, and I think crip dancing also is one of the highest in terms of step counter steps. That and b-boying are both really good in racking up those steps. The problem with b-boying, though, is that's a hard pace to set for 30 minutes straight. So I think I'll probably default more to crip dancing. So what's crip dancing? It's sometimes also known as shuffling. Are we here? Okay. So we'll do some basic crip dancing. Sometimes, or many of the times, I dance just counting beats in my head because I think that's much easier to translate your dancing into different forms of music. Most music in our modern day is 4/4 time signature, so 4 quarter notes make up a 4 count. If I drill myself to count beats instead, then I find that I can actually dance much better when they swap songs out, because you're actually dancing to the bass beat. But that also makes it a very cognitively complex experience. So I'm happy to know that even some of the best choreographers out there find it difficult. I've been watching the Steezy channel, Stylish Easy Dancing, Steezy, Steezy. Steezy is probably the best overall dance channel when it comes to creative ways to learn how to dance. They have such favorites as 3 to 6 choreographers, 1 dance. So they pick one song and they ask 3 to 6 different choreographers to choreograph to that same song. What I find fun about that is just the range in what these different choreographers create. Another favorite is reverse choreograph, which is a dancer choreographer dances without music, and then a music producer produces a song to that movement sequence. Then the choreographer re-choreographs to the music. One such choreography that I love is Brian Puspos, who had competed on America's Best Dance Crew. I think Brian Puspos is somebody that I think my style probably could evolve into. He's a dance icon and a dance goal, if you will. Why? Is because Brian tuts a lot, and so do I. I'm obsessed with tutting because it's actually probably the first dance style that I took notice to in America's Best Dance Crew. Of course, most people have heard of and observed breakdancing, breakdancing is even going to be a new Olympic sport in 2024, alongside skateboarding, surfing, and climbing. But tutting is something that just looks so fucking cool in light of my 101 country Egypt. In 2020, Egypt was my 101th or 101st UN country, and I observed up close those Egyptian hieroglyphic reliefs that tutting is based on. So while I noticed that the Egyptians are far less picky on the strict 90-degree angles, I've taken the Egyptian concept and just gone to town. I'm rather picky on the 90s because I think 90s are what set tutting apart from other styles of dance. Now, part of what positioned me in a good place to start on tutting is the fact that I've been stretching, doing yoga for a number of years. In stretching and doing yoga, I often stretch beyond 90. So 90 would be this, beyond 90 would be that, and even higher and higher. So I'll do one as I'm talking to y'all because it's good practice. Part of what I've tried with this vlog is to add my favorite things together in a dynamic way. So the IDW, the intellectual dark web, is something that I'm always consuming. And I can talk, which I have, but I think the true vein of What the Fuck Wednesdays is also to be dynamic and move around. So that's why I'm adding those two things together, dancing and talking, into one thing that I do on Wednesday. In some ways, I'm a little hodgepodge like Brian Rose of London Real. He's an interesting character because he talks his ass off in new media on his show, but he also has a very similar background to me. He is an MIT educated engineer and business person, which I also have. I'm an engineer and business person, ex-engineer, ex-business person, but still, I have those analytical business skills that I bring with me to adventure travel, to adventure sports, to adventure in general. Brian Rose himself has also dedicated to mental and physical pursuits. So he breakdances and has a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now the BJJ thing I only learned about recently, but it makes sense because I thought to myself, Brian moves very well for his age and for someone who picked up breakdancing later, like me. I only started to breakdance last year, but I definitely leveraged some cross skills, my martial arts, my yoga. He leveraged his purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I think that a number of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu martial arts coaches have commented on how those two skills, breaking and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, actually have a lot of cross leverage, that many of the B-boys and B-girls who come in to learn Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu have an obvious leg up, if you will, on the other newbies without that skill, because you really learn to move your body in breakdancing, in breaking, in a way that's different than a lot of other sports. And obviously, you move your body in a much better way than your average couch potato. So, am I going to do some more? Yeah. Let's just go 10 minutes of freestyle at the end. I want to throw some music on though. Some music on. Okay, too bad. Oh, did I completely lose the thread? Okay, I will talk while I dance. Brian Puspos, who I talked about as having created a choreography that a music producer produced music to, was noticeably counting 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and to a metronome as well. That's something I've considered doing because I just want that precision. Precision works. So how would I count beats? It would be 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. And I'm a little off. I do so much bouncing in and out because that's what dancing is like sometimes. The reason I respect Brian a lot, Puspos, is because It's hard to actually dance without music and just come up with moves randomly on the fly. And that's actually what I do a lot of the time because it's fun, but it also takes time and space, practice, and frustration. So when you're watching the professionals, they'll rarely show you this part of behind the scenes. But that makes up a bulk of the work done to have a final finished product. So I think it's fun, maybe, for others to have a backstage pass at what it's like to prepare for such performances, because it's actually a lot of work behind the scenes. If you only observe the final product, which is obviously what happens with famous people in their choreographies, you might miss the fact that they've been doing a version of what I'm doing now over many, many days, weeks, months, years, decades. All over the place. This is probably what it's going to be like to do David Goggins' challenge. I'm trying to think if I want to structure it, because if you think about it, running is fairly structured from a movement standpoint. You have a lot of dynamic setting going before your eyes if you pick unique routes. But other than that, I think running is fairly mechanical. So do I want to be mechanical? But I think it depends on whether I'm trying to hit steps or whether I'm trying to hit time. If we're talking about half an hour, I dance for half an hour, usually with more volume movement than what I just did, but I do it. I've a couple of vlogs back where I just dance strictly for 30 minutes. And obviously, when we say strictly for 30 minutes, we mean there's some interval for rest, short rest, but at the very least your brain is always engaged, you're always thinking about what new moves to do. So this has been a good practice test run for what the 4x4x48 is going to look like. I'm still debating whether I want to actually vlog during the 4x4x48. I'm going to modify it so that I have my consistent sleep pattern, because I worked really hard since the beginning of this year and even since the end of last year to have a better sleep pattern, courtesy of Dr. Andrew Huberman, the neuroscientist. I've essentially adopted what I call the Huberman lifestyle, which is being deliberate and disciplined about my sunlight. So in the mornings I dance for at least 30 minutes for my morning sunlight, and now pretty much after 9 or 10 p.m. I'm lights out. Even if I'm sometimes chilling out in the bed, I have a completely pitch dark room because, according to Dr. Huberman, you should really try to have those dark conditions between 10 p.m. to 4 a.m. So for the last couple of months, I've actually done that hardcore, and I feel much better than I used to. I used to struggle a lot with my sleep, and I still do somewhat sometimes now, but this has been the single thing that I've done that's changed everything in terms of that. So Dr. Huberman has his own podcast, and I think it's probably been one of the podcasts that's changed my life the most. And I've already talked about many people in that category, so we're good.